Hey guys, today I bring you a breathtaking story. Let's meet Elara Winslow, who had a near-death experience and returned with an urgent message about what's to come on October 29th. What she saw on the other side will impact you deeply. Before we start, leave your like, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss anything. Get ready for this revealing journey. I am Elara Winslow, and today I share something that changed the course of my existence and perhaps that of all humanity. In 2001, an experience took me beyond the limits of what we understand as life and death, revealing secrets I never imagined existed and truths that haunt me to this day. I carry with me an urgent message, entrusted to me during my journey to the ends of the cosmos. It's a story that needs to be told, not just for its personal meaning, but for what it represents for all of us. I've always been an ordinary person, living a typical Texas life, surrounded by friends and family. I never imagined that I would be chosen to experience something so extraordinary and carry such an important message. Before that day in August, I saw the world in a completely different way. My perspective on life, death, and our existence was limited by the earthly understanding we all share. The decision to share my story was not an easy one. For a long time, I kept this experience with me, trying to understand its true meaning. How do you explain something that defies all logic and reason? How to convey sensations and perceptions that go beyond words? However, the urgency of the message I received and the approach of the scheduled date compel me to speak. I do not seek to convince anyone of the veracity of what I experienced. Each person who hears this story will have the freedom to interpret it in their own way. What I can guarantee is that every word I share is true, every detail is accurate, as it was experienced in that transformative moment. My experience completely changed my understanding of our existence and our purpose on this planet. Today, I look at the sky and see much more than stars. I see a living, pulsating universe, full of meanings and connections that previously escaped me. Each breath carries a new meaning. Each moment is an opportunity to share what I learned during my brief passage through the other side. This is my story, my testimony of a journey that transcended the boundaries between life and death, and which I now share with all of you. It was a hot August afternoon in Texas, and the Guadalupe River glistened in the scorching sun. I was with my friends, celebrating Maya's birthday, one of the most beloved people in our group. The sky was a crystal clear blue, without a single cloud that could predict what was to come. The river trip had been perfect, full of laughter and joy, those moments you wish would last forever. At the end of the tour, we headed to the school bus that would take us back to the parking lot. Something inside me hesitated at that moment, a subtle intuition that suggested waiting for another vehicle. But Maya insisted that we stay together, and I, not wanting to ruin the festive atmosphere, agreed. I stepped onto the crowded bus, holding onto the grab bars, feeling the hot metal beneath my hands. The driver seemed eager to finish his shift, making sudden gear changes that shook the entire vehicle. Each bump was like a warning of what was to come, but at that moment, they were just part of the day's adventure. I could feel my body being pushed against the sides of the bus, trying to keep my balance while talking to my friends. Then, in a moment of particularly strong acceleration, everything changed. It was as if time slowed down, allowing me to record every detail of what was happening. My body was thrown against the emergency door with a force I couldn't control. The metallic sound of the door opening still echoes in my memory, a sharp noise that marked the beginning of my journey into the unknown. The fall was quick, but every second was etched in my mind with frightening clarity. I felt the impact of the trailer's metal structures against my skin, each point of contact leaving its mark. The hot asphalt approached quickly, and then came the final moment, the crushing weight of the wheel on my head and neck. It was a moment of intense pain followed by absolute silence, an abrupt transition between two worlds that would change my life forever. In an instant, everything became completely silent. It was a silence unlike any I had ever experienced, a silence that seemed to have a substance of its own. When I opened my eyes, or whatever it was that allowed me to see at that moment, I found myself floating above the scene of the accident. The feeling was surreal. I could see my own body lying on the road, motionless, as the heat from the asphalt created ripples in the air around me. The most extraordinary thing was the absence of fear or panic. A deep and inexplicable serenity surrounded me, as if I were protected by an energy field that neutralized any negative emotion. He observed, with impressive clarity, every detail of the scene unfolding below. I saw my friends running towards me, their faces contorted into expressions of horror and concern. I could distinguish every drop of sweat on their foreheads, every tremor in their hands, every tear that began to form in their eyes. My thoughts, however, began to turn to my family, especially my mother. He could feel, even in that state, how devastated she would be by the news. It was strange how I could process these worries without them causing me distress. It was as if she could understand the pain of others while remaining enveloped in absolute peace. Time seemed to work differently in this state. There was no rush, there was no urgency. Each moment unfolded with its own grace, allowing me to observe and absorb every detail with a precision that would be impossible under normal circumstances. I saw people moving around me, some in slow motion, others at normal speed, as if time was malleable and adjusted to my perception. The feeling of being separated from my body was strangely natural, like it was just another way of existing. There was no discomfort or disorientation, just a clear and serene understanding that I was experiencing something beyond the limits of physical existence. It was as if my consciousness had expanded, allowing me to perceive reality from a completely new perspective. As I floated above the crash scene, I felt a presence approaching, a familiar energy that enveloped me with a comforting, welcoming warmth. It was Benjamin, my late uncle, appearing exactly as I remembered him before his tragic death years ago. He was young, radiant, with a serenity that I had never seen on his face during his earthly life. Benjamin's presence brought with it a mixture of emotions: joy at reunion, comfort at familiarity, and a deeper understanding of the continuity of existence beyond death. He approached me with a gentle smile, and his voice, when he spoke, was as clear as my own conscience. "It is not your time, Elara." His words carried a weight and certainty that transcended our normal understanding of time and space. Benjamin explained that there were people who would still need me, that my mission was far from over. In his presence, I began to understand that what I was experiencing was just a pause, an interlude in a much larger journey. His energy emanated wisdom and knowledge, as if he had access to universal truths that were still unknown to me. I observed every detail of his appearance: the gentle eyes that seemed to contain all the understanding of the universe, the serene smile that conveyed peace, the luminous aura that surrounded him. It was as if he existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, being both familiar and transcendent. Your presence made me realize that the connections we form throughout life continue to exist beyond life, just in a different, deeper form. The time I spent with Benjamin seemed to exist outside of normal linearity. Every moment was filled with meaning and understanding. He didn't need to use many words. His presence alone communicated profound truths about the nature of existence. It was as if every gesture, every look, contained layers of meaning that my expanded consciousness could understand perfectly. As Benjamin's presence began to dissipate, an intense light appeared before me, revealing a tunnel of vibrant, pulsing energy. It was unlike anything I had ever seen or imagined. It was not just a physical passage, but a corridor of pure energy that seemed to connect different dimensions of existence. At the end of this luminous path, I noticed the presence of figures that I instinctively recognized as my ancestors. Their faces were strangely familiar to me, as if they were part of an ancient memory stored somewhere deep in my soul. Their gazes contained a unique blend of compassion and seriousness, as if they perfectly understood both my past journey and the path yet to come. Each of these beings seemed to carry a part of the story of my lineage, a piece of the puzzle that formed my very existence. They didn't smile, but their expressions conveyed a deep knowledge and understanding that went beyond words. It was as if each of them knew exactly who I was, where I came from, and most importantly, what my purpose was. The tunnel itself seemed alive, its walls pulsating with colors that don't exist in our normal visible spectrum. Each pulse of light seemed to carry information, memories, and ancient knowledge that I could understand on a level beyond the intellectual. It was a form of communication that transcended language, where each vibration transmitted volumes of information directly to my consciousness. As I got closer to these ancestors, I could feel the weight of their experiences, their struggles, their achievements, and their accumulated wisdom. They formed a kind of silent council, each representing different aspects of the human and spiritual journey. Their presence was both comforting and solemn, as if they were there not only to welcome me, but also to prepare me for something greater that was to come. At the end of the tunnel, the light intensified even more, and from it emerged a figure that I recognized instantly. It was Jesus. His presence was unlike any artistic representation I had ever seen. It was a pure energy of unconditional love that transcended any earthly description. When he approached me, I felt enveloped by a wave of love so pure and absolute that every particle of my being seemed to vibrate in harmony with that divine energy. His eyes contained infinite depth, reflecting all the wisdom of the universe and, at the same time, a personal and direct love for each living being. When he hugged me, I felt a feeling of total acceptance, as if every aspect of my being, including my flaws and fears, was completely accepted and loved. It was a love that transcended any judgment or condition. He looked at me with a calm seriousness that carried the weight of an important message. His voice, when he spoke, was not just a sound, but a vibration that resonated in every fiber of my being. Elara, on October 29th, the Earth will experience a spiritual impact like never before. It will be a collective awakening and a transition which will require strength and preparation. Each word carried not just its literal meaning, but deep layers of understanding that unfolded in my consciousness. The energy that emanated from him was both powerful and gentle, capable of transforming and healing, but always respecting free will. In his presence, I understood that love is not just a feeling, but the very creative force of the universe. It was as if, for the first time, I could see and feel the true nature of reality, an infinite web of connections based on divine love. Time seemed to not exist during this encounter. Each moment expanded infinitely, allowing a deep understanding of truth that would normally be beyond our ability to understand. The message he shared with me was not just about future events, but about the very nature of humanity's spiritual evolution. While in the presence of Jesus, my mind was flooded with visions of the future that unfolded like a multidimensional movie. I saw people in different states of consciousness facing the great transition, some in confusion and fear, others embracing the change with love and deep understanding. It was a true collective awakening, but one that would bring immense challenges to humanity. Jesus showed me that this transformation would not be an isolated event, but part of a greater divine plan for the evolution of human consciousness. Each image he received was accompanied by a profound understanding that transcended intellectual knowledge. It was as if every cell of my being was being programmed with ancient and yet completely new wisdom. The visions showed that this awakening would touch every soul on earth, regardless of their beliefs or cultural background. I saw how the structures we know would begin to transform, not through destruction, but through a profound shift in the way people perceive and interact with reality. It was a process of transmutation that would begin at the individual level and expand to the collective. I understood that to face this transformation, we needed to align ourselves with the love and compassion that permeate the cosmos. It was not just a question of survival, but of conscious evolution. Every word Jesus shared resonated with universal truth, penetrating my soul and imprinting itself on my deepest essence. The revelations came in waves of deeper and deeper understanding. I saw how each individual decision would affect the whole, how each act of love or fear would contribute to the final outcome of this great transition. It was an immense responsibility, but at the same time, I felt absolute confidence in the divine plan and in humanity's ability to go through this period of transformation. Guided by the hand of Jesus, I was transported beyond the stars on a journey that defied all laws of physics we know. We passed through interdimensional portals that seemed to bend the very fabric of space-time, each revealing new levels of reality and understanding. It was as if every barrier in the physical universe dissolved, allowing my consciousness to freely explore the many layers of existence. During this cosmic journey, we arrived on a planet with turquoise waters that immediately awakened in me a deep sense of recognition. It was a place that transcended time, a home that my soul seemed to know intimately, even though my earthly mind had never been there before. Every molecule in that world vibrated in perfect harmony, creating a symphony of love and universal connection. The atmosphere of this planet was unlike anything I had ever experienced. The air, if I could call it that, seemed to be alive, charged with its own consciousness. The colors were more vibrant, deeper, as if each tone contained multiple dimensions of meaning. It was a place where the separation between consciousness and matter did not exist. Everything was one, Everything was connected in an infinite web of love and understanding. The waters of this planet were not just a physical element, but a means of transmitting knowledge and vital energy. Each wave carried ancient stories. Each drop contained universes of wisdom. I could feel how that world was connected to the earth through invisible but powerful ties, as if it were a mirror of a potential future for our own evolution. As we floated on that cosmic ocean, Jesus showed me how every planet, every star, every particle in the universe was part of a greater divine plan. I saw how our little blue planet was intrinsically linked to this cosmic web of consciousness, and how the changes that were coming to Earth were part of a much larger movement of universal evolution. Upon descending into the crystal-clear waters of that planet, I was greeted by beings that resembled mermaids, aquatic creatures of transcendental beauty. They enveloped me in a group hug that conveyed a sense of belonging so deep that earthly words cannot describe. It was as if each of them were part of a family that my soul knew intimately, although my conscious mind had never encountered before. These aquatic beings were unlike any mythological representation we know. Their shapes were fluid, almost ethereal, and emanated their own light that pulsed in tune with the surrounding waters. Their eyes held an ancient wisdom, and when they looked at me, it was as if they could see every aspect of my being, every experience I had ever had, every thought I had ever had. Communication with them happened on a level far beyond words. It was a direct exchange of consciousness, where every thought, every emotion, every memory was shared in its entirety. Through this connection, I understood that they were guardians of ancestral knowledge, spiritual mentors who had accompanied my journey through multiple lifetimes. Amid the waters of that world, I experienced a peace that transcended any earthly experience. It was as if each movement of the waves washed away old memories, bringing to the surface deep understandings about my true nature. The beings showed me aspects of myself that I had always sought but had never found on Earth, a pure essence that exists beyond physical and mental limitations. Each being that surrounded me seemed to represent a different aspect of universal consciousness, and together they formed a perfect symphony of love and wisdom. They showed me how each soul has its own unique role in this great cosmic web, and how my mission on Earth was connected to a purpose far greater than I could have imagined. It was then that Jesus approached again, indicating that it was time to return to my physical body. His request was accompanied by an unshakable certainty that I had an important mission to fulfill. Hesitation took hold of me. The desire to remain in that state of perfect harmony and understanding was almost irresistible. How could I leave all this peace, all this unconditional love, to return to the density of physical existence? Jesus, sensing my reluctance, enveloped me in his loving light and promised that he would be by my side every step of the journey ahead. He showed me that returning did not mean a separation from this higher reality, but rather an opportunity to bring some of this light to the earthly plane. His promise to guide my path was accompanied by a deep understanding of the importance of the mission that awaited me. The process of returning to the body was gradual, as if each layer of expanded consciousness needed to be carefully retracted. I felt myself being guided back through the dimensions, carrying with me not just memories, but a fundamental transformation in my being. The message about the spiritual transition of October 29th was engraved in my soul, along with the responsibility to share this knowledge with others. When I finally opened my physical eyes, I found myself back in the scorching heat of the Texas highway, surrounded by my desperate friends. The contrast between the two realities was intense, but inside me, something had permanently changed. The understanding of the interconnectedness of all things, the unconditional love I experienced, and the urgency of the message I received remained vivid in my consciousness. I realized that my survival was not just a medical miracle, but part of a larger plan. Every breath now carried new meaning. Every moment was an opportunity to prepare myself and others for the great transition to come. The mission to share this truth, to awaken the world to the love and peace that dwell in our hearts, has become the central purpose of my existence. If you liked this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.